Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Amna Sapan. Thank you for joining us. The number of people experiencing homelessness in Arizona and across the U.S. has risen in past years. Experts worry that many more Americans will find themselves without a roof over their heads because of economic effects of the pandemic and the recent end to the federal eviction moratorium. Cronkite News reporter Miles Green shows us how the Phoenix Rescue Mission's Hope Coach program is helping to combat the issue.
This is Yvette with Phoenix Rescue Mission. How are you doing this afternoon? That's good. Do you perchance have any openings? She says she can't take sleeping in her car tonight, and I told her, let me see what I can do. What else do you want to know?
I began to struggle with suicidal ideations at the age of 19. So I've struggled most of my adult life. During the height of my battle with my behavioral health, I became homeless for a short while. I had to just stop everything and focus on my behavioral health, and that's what I did for 3 years.
This is when I was stationed in New Jersey, but I think this picture really tells the story because if you're able to look in my eyes in this picture, there's just a sadness there. There's just a sadness there. And it just goes to show you that I had friends and I had connections, but something was missing at that point in time because I tried to take my life.
It saved my life. A judge that thought enough of me to take a total look at me as a person and not my last action to give me an opportunity. And I run with that opportunity, so I seek my recovery with everything that's in me. Every time that I am attempting to give hope to another individual that I come across in the street, it just strengthens my resolve in my own recovery. Do I see behavioral health challenges on the street? Yes. And because of stigma, a lot of times people won't go and get the help that they need. It's almost been demonized. You know, we're still battling people looking at it as a moral failing. It's not. Your mind is sick. Just like your body can get sick, your mind can get sick. But a person has to be willing. You have to surrender. And that goes against human nature. So, you know, a lot of times it can be an uphill battle, but it is well worth it because there is life on the other side of surviving through a struggle of behavioral health challenges.
Where we're at right now in Bonsall Park is pretty much ground zero. The people here are all aware of who we are, what we offer, and about moving forward. Our mission here is to make sure that they're hydrated and to keep engaging with them should they reach that small window of opportunity where they're done.
Most of the homeless that I've encountered and clients, they've lost hope. And I was homeless, so I know this for a fact.
I come from a dark past. I was in the construction field off and on most of my life, but I had 4 prison terms.
I'd get out of prison, look for work. I'd always have that idea in my head towards the end of my sentence, wanting to do better, wanting more, wanting a truck, wanting a job, wanting a place to live. And I kept getting doors slammed in my face.
I'm able to take the things that I've been through of alcohol, drugs, 4 prison terms, multiple felonies, and I'm able to turn that into something good. I'm able to relate on a same equal level. And then they start going, wow, you know what? Yeah, I've been to jail. Yeah, well, check this out. Or I was addicted to meth for 25 years. Once you've lost your rights and you're a 4-time loser, ex-con, and you're all these things that you heap upon yourself, all I want to do is be with you. Be a part of society, be a part of having another chance. They just don't know how to get it. They don't know how to attain it. What they do know is what they know to get them in prison. So what the Phoenix Rescue Mission will do for you, we walk with individuals.
I think a lot of people who are chronically homeless, who have been homeless for such a long time, really are skeptical of the assistance that is out there. They're kind of weary about individuals who are coming up to their encampment. What are you doing here? Are you here to bring officers to me so I can get arrested? Or like, what is your intention? So to go out there and to tell someone, I know exactly what you're going through, I've been there, I think is a really, really strong tool because it helps in creating relationship. We've had just record-breaking success, and it's very possible that we place someone into a shelter and they might have left in a couple days. However, it's one step closer. So now when we come back to reintroduce a service again, it's not completely foreign to them, and they might be more willing and accepting to receive services. So much more than just the availability of housing or the affordability of housing, but it's the accessibility of housing. Is it transitional? Is it housing that caters to specific needs like mental illness? How do we have housing that helps to promote community for individuals who have been chronically homeless and help them transition into society again?
Most of them don't think they deserve better. They're actually out here thinking this is what they deserve and this is what they have coming from the choices that they made in their life, and that it's too far to go back. But with the proper hope and the proper love and compassion, it's possible.
And now, a look back at some of our top stories concerning housing here in Arizona.
The housing market in Arizona is booming, but one demographic is still far behind. Black Arizonans have the lowest homeowner percentage by race and are far below the national average. Cronkite News reporter Lauren Quinlan tells us this is just one finding from a Phoenix-based nonprofit organization that is pushing for change in their latest report.
The State of Black Arizona, or SBAZ, released a Volume 5 report that focuses on 5 major issues that highlight inequality, which includes education, the economy, and infrastructure. Homeownership is one area where they saw drastic differences.
African Americans, even with a lot of policy pieces that have been put in place, like the Fair Housing Act, that hasn't changed some of the issues around redlining and housing discrimination. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the homeownership rate for Black Arizonans is 34%, compared to that of the state's average, which is 64%. Wante Daly has been a homeowner in Arizona for almost 20 years and has a unique perspective.
There's systemic racism in certain areas, but the fact that it's not acknowledged in a lot of those areas, and homeownership is one of those areas, it's like, how do you change that right now when you have certain people that design the system, because where are you going to go back and change their minds? Because this is something that has been ingrained for years.
According to Taniqua Broughton with the SBAZ, one solution is to create a Black-owned bank in Arizona.
We just started our first CDFI. So Foresight Foundation is in that role where it has an African American woman who is taking the lead, and they are really working to make sure that we have a community financial, investment.
The report also recommends that elected leaders should invest in increasing state pathways to homeownership through counseling, sound lending, and more.
This is my house, and again, it goes back to generations. If I want to, I can give this house to my son. So it's like you have these options that you have if you wouldn't, if you're just renting. And so it's kind of like you have leverage. So a home ownership is leverage in other areas of your life.
The state of Black Arizona urges policymakers and community leaders to focus on the issues outlined in their report, because if not, they believe these housing inequities will only grow. In Phoenix, Lauren Quinlan, Cronkite News.
State of Black Arizona believes Black home ownership is more than just owning a home. It's a pathway for building generational wealth and financial security.
Housing costs here in Phoenix are on the rise, and low-income families are some of the hardest hit by these increases. This is one reason why organizations are working together to create more affordable housing in the area. I recently toured a location in downtown Phoenix where affordable housing is a reality.
We have a housing crisis here in this state.
At a recent press conference, Representative Ruben Gallego met with housing leaders from across the valley to tackle the problems of affordable housing.
Isn't this exactly what we want every Arizona person to have?
Unfortunately, according to the Arizona Department of Housing, housing costs in Phoenix are currently the highest they've ever been, and the state is short about 200,000 affordable housing units. Urban living on Fillmore is one example of how federal, local, and state funding can help with affordable housing.
Rents for around $790. It's a 3-bedroom in the heart of downtown Phoenix, where rents around us are around $2,000.
According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, as of 2020, Arizona has about 10,000 unhoused people statewide. Devine says that having affordable housing in downtown Phoenix creates better life opportunities.
Without housing stability, every other aspect of our lives is affected.
It's very difficult, especially in Phoenix right now, if you're a working mother, like my mom was, to actually be able to afford a place that's going to be stable for you to actually be able to raise your kids and send your kids to school.
Native American Connections and the Arizona Housing Coalitions wants more funding from the federal government, and they hope the Build Back Better plan is passed. And to continue efforts to meet high affordable housing demands, the Native American Connections organization is developing a new apartment complex here in downtown Phoenix. The new project would add an additional 216 low-income housing units, and they hope they should be available by the year 2023. According to the Arizona Housing Coalition, 3 out of 4 low-income families don't receive the housing assistance they need because federal funding is not there.
In the last 18 months, Arizona saw a 0.3% decrease in construction employees, according to the Associated General Contractors of America. But Arizona saw a rise in construction employments by 0.8% from July to August. Reporter Julia Sandor went to Western Maricopa Education Center, or WestMec, to see their innovative general construction technology course and see how we can prepare students for the future.
Concrete, masonry, roofing, and many more complex skills are taught through the WestMec General Construction Technology program. The course counts for 2 credits towards a high school diploma. The hands-on class allows students who are made up of mostly juniors and seniors to learn from professionals.
I have so many varied contractors that come and give their time and what I call make an investment so that they can do a withdrawal of a hire down the road.
In the past, Avanti Windows worked with students and gave them a Mastery Window Installation certification. And students have worked in person with Coors Lab Structures, a company that builds parking structures in Arizona. The contractors who come to the class share their knowledge to help students succeed.
I heard that they're really great in what they do, so that was really exciting. I got them to check what I did, and they said it was great, so I really like having them here.
Students interested in the residential or commercial construction industry can join the 1-year program to get a head start in the field.
Last year I did the electrical program with Mr. Markham as well, and so I decided that was really interesting, and I decided to develop more skills in this type of field, so I joined construction.
Students are also building a house that Habitat for Humanity is going to model their future homes after. The students made their own blueprints and collaborated to pick the best design.
Those contractors are begging for my kids. They want my kids because the work ethic that they have and the knowledge in which they have spent 3.5 hours every single day learning that trade. So that's why our kids are really wanted among the contractors. They're showing up with skill and they know how to work.
In Buckeye, Julia Sandor, Cronkite News.
Next year, the class at West Meck will change from a 1-year course to 2 years to give students more opportunity for hands-on learning. You may have tried your hand at growing your own vegetables during the last year, and if so, you aren't alone. Home gardening is taking off. According to one survey, more than 20 million people took up gardening for their first time in 2020. Diana Quintero was at an event full of gardening enthusiasts to find out why the hobby's growing.
At the Great American Seed-Up, hundreds of Arizona gardeners are looking for the perfect seed for the first time back in person since COVID, and they aren't the only ones.
It was unbelievable. It was astronomical in my mind.
COVID caused a surge of people to take on new hobbies over the last year. On the top of the list was gardening.
It was transformative to how many people finally realized that their food is important, and they wanted to be able to access healthy food and not rely on food that was maybe not going to show up at the grocery store.
The increase in gardening may also be due to people simply having more time at home.
So while you might have considered growing your own food in the past and you were too busy, now all of a sudden if you're working from home, you've got a lot more time.
You get it. Reach in there.
The way food was handled during the national emergency played a big role in the trust individuals have on our food systems.
Wow!
Co-founder of the Great American Seed-Up, Bill McDorman, works directly with the seeds. He says that most of the food produced in the state comes from seeds that aren't native. At the Great American Seed-Up, their goal is to get thousands of people to save seeds. But the Great American Seed-Up is about more than just seeds. They also want to plant the seed of education. The gardening industry has seen a steady growth in popularity even before COVID.
2 years ago, it started actually with the millennials. We saw the biggest bump in new people wanting to garden in demographic history in the United States.
A survey conducted by Bonnie Plants shows that in the last year, 30% of people planning to grow their own food were gardening for their first time. 65% of those claimed COVID was the main reason.
And it just really showed that people have the interest, and when they're at home, when they have the time, they will take it up.
As the country reopens and people head back into their offices away from their gardens, the trend could wither. However, at the Seed-Up, they are optimistic that this is one hobby that has taken root. In Phoenix, Diana Quintero, Cronkite News.
A report from U of Arizona says the West experienced a 26% increase in horticulture over the last year.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us. Break It Down is next. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.
Break It Down is brought to you in part by Mayo Clinic and viewers like you.
I'm thrilled to see you, Jennifer, and I need your help to break it down. I review my list of pandemic shows, meaning those TV shows I immersed myself during the beginning of the pandemic, and it includes series like Normal People, Tiger King, and The Baker and the Beauty. And reflecting upon my choices, I was perhaps trying to escape from the reality of the pandemic grief and the non-stop political news cycle. I'm not sure if I succeeded. However, it makes me think of the notion of media consumption as a way to escape from reality. And can you elaborate on the notion of media escapism?
Yeah, I had a similar experience. The idea is that whenever you consume a book, a TV show, a movie, the idea is if it's good, you're going to be transported to this other place, time, and get caught up in the story. Even in video games, people talk about immersion and how if you put in the wrong weapon or costume, that interrupts their sense of immersion. So definitely escaping is one of those things. There was a meme floating around at that time is a meme of Homer Simpson in Moe's bar, and people put different things on the faces of the other people in the bar. And this particular meme, half the faces were the coronavirus image, the ball with the spikes on it, and the other half were the Tiger King. And Tiger King was, I think, a great way that people could kind of coalesce around something that wasn't about death and disease. So I think that's a very common strategy.
But what happens when fictionalized TV cannot escape from what's happening in the news cycle? For example, I can think of just a few months after the pandemic started, television shows like Grey's Anatomy, The Good Doctor, Shameless, and South Park began to integrate the COVID-19 into their storyline. And again, this is not new. Historically, this has happened before on TV, right?
Right. Yeah, totally. There've always been ways that television shows have commented on things that were happening. I've done work on how Westerns in the 1960s commented on the civil rights movement, but without actually talking explicitly about it. And I think as times have changed, networks have become less afraid of dealing with political issues. In the 70s, people dealt with it a lot, then it kind of went away. But I think these days, there isn't the same level of fear that, oh my gosh, people just want to, get away and we can't do this. And speaking of South Park uses a certain kind of animation that allows it to quickly create a story. And so that's why they're able to comment on social issues, pretty soon after they happen. The regular, television show or even a regular animated show, it takes months, right, for them to be able to comment on something. So yeah, this definitely has happened before, and it's very interesting to see how it's working out here. I guess the last thing I would say about this is when 9/11 happened, there was a lot of concern about what is TV going to do because it's such a horrible, traumatic event. And so there were a lot of different strategies. Sex and the City, which is set in New York, they just had an episode where, the main character, Carrie, is looking at a snowball that has the World Trade Center in it. And they removed the World Trade Center from the title sequence. So it was the idea that this is so sad, like this is so, traumatic, how can we even comment on it?
Yeah, I
remember
that episode of Sex and the City. It was really moving. In addition, I would like to say, the Black Lives Matter movement has also been included in some of the most prominent TV productions, such as Blackish, and more recently, the TV show Station 19 included a George Floyd episode. What are some of the pros and cons of adding these storylines to fictionalized series?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I actually watched both of those episodes, and one of the pros is that people definitely have a sense that these days, and maybe for some decades, that TV needs to comment on important things that are happening. They can't just ignore it. So that's one pro, I would argue, that and also just for the viewer, it can be, even we talked about escapism, but it also allows people to sort of process their own feelings about these issues, right? Because you have different characters espousing different points of view, and you really get to explore, I think, the different ideas about a certain issue. What Blackish did was they reran an older episode where they spend the whole episode talking about police brutality. And apparently, I didn't see the rerun, but apparently they had a 8-minute and 45-second, just the same amount of time that Chauvin was kneeling on George Floyd's neck. Station 19 had a situation where each of the cast members came in and talked to a therapist. And so there were these interesting sort of monologues. And what I find so interesting about these two episodes is that I felt they were just unsparing. It wasn't a sort of thing where we got to soft pedal the issue. Like, they were really digging into some important things, which is, I think, very, it's hard to do well in a TV show.
Do you think audiences are succeeding in escape when they're watching TV, or perhaps audiences don't necessarily want to escape, but to engage with the complex world we live in?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. The idea of escapism and engagement is a really interesting tension for people who talk about media, because some people use this idea of escapism to say, well, then therefore what happens in the media doesn't matter. It's just entertainment. It's just something to do. But we know that there's all kinds of important political things happening in the media. And so we want to also think about engagement, how even in the things that we think of as so fluffy and light, that there's politics going on, right? It's a very interesting thing. I think that, audiences are capable of both. I think a lot of times it's about what they want to devote their energy to at that moment. Particularly now that there's so much on-demand media, that they can say, I just want something lighthearted right now. or, they can say, oh, I've heard people talking about this episode. I want to, dig into that.
That's a good point. And I'm thinking, for example, my own habits watching TV and binging on TV shows, like how I made the choice of watching Bridgerton and then jump into them, right, on Amazon, and how kind of different, because I needed to complement each other. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, absolutely.
That you mentioned that. So I'm really thankful for helping me to break it down, Jennifer, and good to see you.
Nice to see you as well.
This hour of local news is made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you. If you have comments about Arizona PBS News, please contact us at one of the addresses on your screen. Thank you.